Hello everyone, I'm Filippo. Welcome to our new opening series, How to Master Your Opening. In this new series, you will learn some crucial strategies of opening, including knowing some classic and trendy josekis and know why some of them are better than another. You will also learn some abnormal and tricky moves, so that you can counter them when you meet them. Most importantly, we'll discuss these variations in some classic opening settings, so that we can plan our game from a whole board point of view. So without further ado, let's start our lecture today. Today we'll talk about the most common type of opening setting, which is 2 star points for both black and white. In this case, black occupies 2 star points from the right side, and white occupies 2 star points from the left side. In this type of setting, we know that both players occupy the corner using star point. So the way you occupy a corner usually means something. So comparing with other ways to occupy a corner, let's say, for example, small I or 3-3, the star point is the most efficient and probably most uncertain way of occupying a corner. On the one hand, it doesn't require an immediate protection of the corner. For example, if you're using a small I, probably you need to use some ways to protect the corner as a defending. But for the star point, there's no immediate way or need to protect the corner. However, as for white, there are too many ways to invade this corner. For example, I can approach from the top, I can approach from the bottom, I can also do a 3-3 invasion, I can even do some small I attach on occasions when applicable. So as we can see, there are many variations and uncertainty leads to this star point, so which makes this type of opening the most, let's say, flexible type of opening setting. So now it's black's turn. When we see this, there are 2 ways for us in the opening first we want to think. First is whether we want to develop our own territory, let's say on the right, or invade the opponent's territory on the left. So we'll begin with developing our own territory. And the most common and interesting, let's say, way of developing our own territory is the Sanrense, or 3 star point. This type of opening usually leads to a big mile of black on the right side and invasion from the white, and later on a close and intensive fight in the middle. This usually develops into some very visually beautiful kinds of game, which is therefore welcomed by some beginners and including some top players. But now, of course, as AI release, there are no more, let's say, top players playing this type of opening, but it's still relatively common in some amateur games and some Sanrense fans. So let's start with this. So as for white, now is like, I need to choose some time to invade this right side middle of black, because I cannot develop my own territory following black. Remember, black has an advantage of playing first. If we are developing our own territory in such kind of imitation game, the result is the center point become more and more crucial. If they are all solid territory like this, the center point is definitely more valuable than a komi. So white must choose a suitable time to invade the right hand side middle. And usually when the 3 star point on the right side is complete, now it's probably a considerable time to invade as for white. So the most common, of course, way of invading this 3-star point is approach either from here or here. It's the same. And for black, now there are some choices. We know we can do some pincer moves. We can also do this to protect the corner, and we can attach to develop the measure directly. So let's see one by one. So first, what about pincer? There are some 1 space, 2 space, 3 space. And the whole point of using this pincer is to develop the right side. The classic and perhaps most common way is the 1 space lower pincer. And then white has a choice of jump out and 3-3 invasion. Let's see the 3-3 invasion first. Let's see the most classic joseki we have learned before. At this point, white goes down to the second line and the black plays a nice move. This is a classic joseki which is nowadays not very common already, because the AI, after AI release, they taught us some newer variation, and comparing the newer variation, we can see why this version is outdated. So later on for the follow-up, black has probably this sente. Because the corner is somewhere in jeopardy if you tenuki. In this way, although you can get out, there is still no 2 eyes, and black takes the side in a very comfortable manner, and you are still driven out. So due to the half sente kind of nature of this second line honey, the potential for white to invade in this type of area is limited. So that's why we think that this classic joseki is suitable for black when we are trying to develop the right hand side measure. And if we do a similar kinds of joseki down there, it's very difficult now for white to invade, because if you go there too deeply, it's very hard for white to make a living on the right side, because the two white groups will likely to affect each other when you are trying to make eye space down there. So as a result, maybe white will choose something like this as a invade from the top, but it's like you are still likely to be a close, very intensive fight, and it's very dangerous for white to make these moves. Unless you are very confident, this is probably not the most comfortable way of invading this 3-C when we are doing this kind of opening. So how to improve this? We know that the 3-3 invasion is not likely to be at fault, and this is a natural kind of choice for black to protect the right side. And then the AI tells us that we should play the second line instead of this second line. Let's compare the new variation with the old variation. you can reserve this or play this. It doesn't matter in this case. And after that, white goes here, and then black jump. Now this is a new version of joseki in this kind of 3-3 invasion. As compared to the previous one, we can see that although it seems that black is more complete, but actually there is a cutting point here. Even though black reserves the chance of capturing this stone, but remember, the corner is still alive and there's no center here, and the cutting point is still there, which means that black has an obvious weakness on the outside. More importantly, the right side territory is reduced, so that later on white can choose to easily attach from bottom or something like this kind of thing to reduce the center potential, so that it's perhaps easier to limit the potential of black. Now, so this is the newer variation of joseki. If white choose not to play this variation, white can also jump, which is also very common. And this is also very classic joseki we have seen before. Later on, black jump, go here, or wedge. This joseki is also very classic and in some cases outdated, because nowadays we think that perhaps white gives out too much territory as compared to black, because the center now is kind of floating and there is still some weakness probably here or here or here. Which means that later on, when black invades the left side, the white is not as thick as you think. So, if white is not very satisfied of what we discussed, there is another way to improve, which is do a pincer. In this case, black jumps out, white jumps out, and it quickly becomes a fight. In this case, both black and white are quite flexible. So, for example, black jumps again, and then white jump. So, the way I mean flexible is that white can easily go to the corner and sacrifice some stones if the living condition is too bad. Because we can see that because of white gains 2 moves on the left side, these 3 stones is very suffering from let's say 2 lines of black stones. And if white try to leave from the downside, there is some weakness there which prevent white from connecting. But white has a choice of go to the 3-3. So it requires a lot of judgment in this fight, and if you are not comfortable, perhaps jumping out is not your best choice. Because if you jump out, which means then you choose the fight. And if you choose this kind of fight, there's a lot of judgment you want to consider later on when the fight starts. So let's continue with this traditional 3-3 invasion. And our new AI variation here. After completing this joseki, we immediately see that the central mayo becomes more and more crucial for black, because now white takes 3 corners, leaving black with a center potential. And our immediate concern is that how to approach the next corner. Now again, there are 2 thinking for white. One is to reduce the central mayo by choosing a joseki which limits black's potential of developing the center. Another one is taking another corner, forcing black to develop the one and only central mayo, and then I reduce it so that I can win this game. So both comma is still approaching from outside, because if you approach from inner side, we know that it's quite hard for us to make a root on the right side. Even if you try something like this, the black will just simply limit the way, the eye space on the right side, and force white to jump out. It's then very hard for white to reduce the central potential further, because this is a weak group. If you have a weak group, later on in the fight, it's very hard for us to deal with 2 weak groups at the same time. Similar to invade the corner, because if you invade the corner, I'll just disconnect you, and then the side group becomes even more weaker. If you make the corner leaves, something like that, or something like this, the living potential of the side group is jeopardized, and we can see that although you take 2 corners, there are not much points you get. Maybe combining is 15 points, but by attacking this side group, this central potential is very likely to be solidified. So approaching from the side is considered to somewhat like excessive play, because it's too aggressive and may result in some difficult condition of this side group. A more acceptable way of approaching is from the outside. And if black tries something like pincer again, now I can choose jump out, because if I choose this type of fight again, I'm jumping directly towards the potential of black, which may result in some natural, for example, I can still jump. Remember, if I jump 1 step, you need 2 moves to catch me from both sides, which means that I'm more efficient and I'm quicker in terms of jumping in this direction. So it's like, as for what black, the initial thinking is to develop the right side, and by choosing this variation, I'm more likely to destroy your central potential here. So black may want to choose some other options, for example, directly develop my potential. For example, either attach from top, or just 1 space jump, or press the corner. Let's see one by one. So first is to aggressively push white downwards and then develop the center. This is the classic joseki. In this case, we can see that it's very complete for black to take the whole corner. And white is somewhat not very satisfied, because it's very strong, of course, but in terms of points, it's not very efficient. So how to improve this? One thing is to attach. We also see this a lot. In this case, black has two choices. One is this one. White inside, white takes. This is a very common, let's say, handicap joseki. It seems that black is very strong and solid, but there's a weakness down there. In the endgame, white can choose to cut. And more severely, it's very hard for us to catch this invasion. If, for example, if black goes top down, there is a weakness here. If black connects, white will simply go here. There's enough eye space for white to make a living here. If white makes a living on right side, we can say that the white group down there is very complete and solid. There's no further attack to this group. This part is also very solid. Plusing, I have a very solid living group here. And black with nothing left is except a very opened mirror here. So in this case, let's say white has 20 points combined on the right side plus 2 star points, which means that black will probably need at least 40 points to counter the whole board of white, and it's very difficult. So that's why I consider this joseki a handicap joseki, because it's not very commonly seen in top games. More commonly seen is this. We can see that now after doing this, if white chooses to invade directly, this is a very severe pincer. And probably white will have to leave down there, which reduces the potential of developing the model down there for white. And then black can choose to drive this thing out to attack. First, the head is very weak. If white goes somewhere here, it will be very difficult for white to go out because black is very solid. Second, even if you try to make an eye space there, black is a lot more solid on the corner comparing with the handicap joseki we showed just now. So in this case, black is a lot better off if white just invade. But if white protects the side, it's very hard for white to choose a correct way to protect the side. If white just goes too far, there's a weakness here, which leaves black some centers down in the center, or black can reserve this because later on black may choose something like this. We can see that by spending a move down there, black can get a complete wall which helps developing the center. But if white plays too slowly, black can develop the central mile very, very comfortably. Now it's harder for white to make a living down there because there's no more weakness here. This is a goatee. If you play one space jump, I'll just take the root, and the I space is limited. So if this is not very satisfiable, what should white do next? This is not a very satisfying result for white, so white must choose something else. AI tells us this is suggested by AI. So next, black respond here. And then white can either protect the side or goes out. And it becomes a close fight. Later on, black can choose very aggressively push white down there. But it's a very hard fight because there are the white stones, crucial white stones here is a lot more vivid than you think. In this case, it's very complicated, and you can just remember that it's very hard to catch the white groups here. And if black protects down there, white jumps out. After white jumps out again, we can see that the white group down there is perhaps very solid. And then if we start a fight in the center, if white can escape, then the central mile is destroyed. So it becomes a very difficult fight for both sides in this case. So our conclusion is that for this kind of AI variation, if both sides are not tolerating and pushing to the limit, it all results in a close fight. For example, the jumping out and pincer and the push. So for lower Dan and Q players, it's probably wise for you to avoid this kind of close fight and protect. But for higher Dan and professional level player, it's probably good to know this kind of follow-ups so that you can know how to deal with the close fights. And even some limit pusher likes to play this one. Because on the one hand, it's weaker down there, of course, but it might save a stone when you are trying to develop the value down there. What's the other simple choice? Go to the corner. Of course, some beginners like to play this, but as we can see, this is totally unacceptable result for black. Let's compare this result with the band joseki, let's say handicap joseki. We just show you. The white is even more better off because now I get the 3-3 extent. There is at least 10 points plus minus difference between this result and this result. And white can still choose to invade somewhere like that. It's still very hard for black to catch it because let's imagine if white have a living group here separating the top part and bottom part of black. This wall, although seemingly strong, it doesn't have an eye space. So if white jumps out from this direction, it will likely to result in a close fight between this living white group and the wall. And it's very hard, of course, for black to kill this white group completely. So if this is not acceptable, if this is not acceptable, the other choice is this one. And then white goes out either here or here. Let's see this first. Later on, maybe black will try to push white for more, if white goes here, if black honey, there's some interesting move like this. So after this, white is already alive because later on, even if you connect I'll descend, it's straightforward. But white can go inside. And in this case, black will reserve either try to attack from the center and force you to leave down there, or driving you out. It's very complicated. If white choose to tolerate this move and just make a leaving down there, black will shift whatever lost in the corner to the potential down from the downside. It's still acceptable for both players, and for white, it avoids some complicated fight of pushing out and take the corner again and try to reduce the potential later on. Another choice for white is this one. So if black has two choices, one is to wedge and then take the corner. In this case, definitely it's a choice. But we can see that after white leaves comfortably, this part becomes not very efficient. So another way is to go here. And then it becomes a very close game for both of them, because later on, this is not completely authentic, because white can jeopardize the corner and get the center to disconnect white groups. But there is another center here also, because so black is more solid than you think. However, the good point for white is that white gets a center. White can choose whichever the biggest point here, for example, connect, protect the corner, down there, or the side. So it's very hard to judge which side is better in this case. And we will also see some trick move here. So, for example, this one. This is very commonly seen in a head-cap game. If black is afraid of the side potential being destroyed, black will hang it here. And then white will get some similar results of our head-cap joseki by taking the side and the corner together. In this case, of course, black is not very satisfied again. But if black try to disconnect white can still make a comfortable living down there at the corner, and then Tenuki. Because we can see that although black is very, very strong, the potential of developing is limited by this, although it's somewhat hurt by being too close to the wall of black, but they are still vivid. This still limits the potential of, let's say, developing in the center of black. So in this case, it's almost like white goes here, and black harness. I mean, there is definitely better move than this honey, which is this. If white goes, comparing with this result and the previous result, I shift the stone here to here, which protects the solid point on the side of black, which is definitely better. Later on, this is the absolute center for black, and then black can attack. So that's why in this case, white never extend on the third line. Instead, they play a nice move down there. Someone may think, some dampers may think that I can do similar things by using the double honey. In this case, if white captures the side, I'll take the corner. Comparing with this result, black is a lot better off because I capture one more stone. Remember, this is not a center because even if you play here a tenuki, I can capture these three stones. So there's nothing much for white to deal with to the corner, and the corner is a lot bigger than previously. Second, the eye space here is limited. If you play something here, it's awkward. And if you play something like this, it will solidify whatever black left on the top right corner. So in this case, white is not very happy about the result we just see. So traditionally, in classical book, there was a very interesting move here. What's the textbook tell us is that after this, black has two weaknesses here which cannot be protected simultaneously. Let's say if white connect, black will Atari from downside. If white descend, white will capture. If black trying to do this, white will capture the side. Now it's like you cannot catch the corner already because the corner is protected by this extra stone here. The problem of this classic move is that black can actually descend. Remember, white cannot choose this variation because the corner is still dead. But white can only choose this. But we can see that even though white captures a stone here, the corner is still not completely living yet. And this is a fake eye. So if you are trying to use this center to make a living down there in the corner, the side is very strong and the right side of black is not much destroyed. So actually this is not a very good variation for white. So how should white counter this? So instead of playing here, white can play here. If black choose to capture this side, now we can see that we can use the center to take both the side and the corner. And more importantly, the side is destroying what the fundamental point base of black on the right side. there is nothing much else black can do, because if black try to capture the right side, it's still very, white can almost duplicate the handicap joseki we discussed previously, and there is still weakness down here. Black is still not very solid. So by having this second line highly, this double honey doesn't work. And that's what we should remember in this case. So after discussing this attach, some other strategies including one space jump, and the traditional joseki is of course this one. And we know that the AI tells us this is slightly better. We'll spend our next lecture on this corner by comparing this old variation and the newer variation, and some subsequent counterattacks for black, for example, getting outside or protecting the corner. This is a very trendy AI joseki, and we'll see why it's better and why the old one doesn't work. So that's all for our lecture today. If you like it, please subscribe us and like us on our video. If you have interested openings and want to discuss with us, please leave a comment down there. And please do remember to subscribe us on our socials, and thank you for watching this. Bye.